I'm a men's coach, and I've been a coach, a management consultant, working with business leaders and also men. Once I discovered the book from Dr. Glover and did some work with Robert, I became a coach myself with men. It just sort of seamlessly happened, it seems. And I've been doing that for many years, as well as running a management consulting business as my kind of day job, if you like. I run a boutique management consulting company helping businesses grow. And of course, when you come to create change within a business, usually that business is run by a man, most of the clients that I have. And in order to create change, we often need to get into very personal kinds of conversations. So I've been coaching men for about 15 years in a business context, and then also men coming to me because they've heard about No More Mr. Nice Guy and they associate me with Robert because I'm one of Robert's certified coaches. I live in Oxford. I have 2 grown-up children, and I used to be married. And it was actually when I was married and my wife decided to divorce me and kind of created some marital chaos, let's say, that 3 people at that time, within a very short space of time, 3 men recommended the book No More Mr. Nice Guy to me. And I read that, Robert, and it was like reading my autobiography. I was kind of telling everybody, hey, I don't know why my wife wants to leave me. And all these guys were saying, well, you should read this book. That might help you. And of course, it was like, oh my God, every mistake I'd made in my marriage, in my relationship, I could see it there. And I could see all the ways in which I'd struggled in my career, for example, also laid out in the book. And so reading that was very transformative. And I remember going into a meeting, a business meeting, and I ripped up all the presentation slides I was going to recommend, and I trebled the price that I was going to quote. And I just sat there and I didn't care at that point. Didn't matter. Relationship was over, and I realized I'd been being a nice guy. And I literally in that moment stopped being a nice guy. Something flipped. And I did one of the best deals I'd ever done in my life at that point, and it sorted me out. It paid for the divorce, and here we are. So that's a rather long introduction, but I wanted to tell you, Robert, and I'd love you to feel free to share a little bit about yourself if you'd like to. But I wanted to tell you that story because that's how impactful your book has been to me personally and to so many men. When I speak to men, they tell me, well, when I read Robert's book, it was like reading my autobiography. And so we always have this shared experience. So Robert, how did you get started? How did you write the book? And you're a psychotherapist by training, right? And you struck across this book.
I just got to say, well, if I guess it found me. I love that story, Rowan. Thanks for sharing that. I love it that, 3 people told you need to read this book. It seems to work that way. If I hear of the same book 3 times in a week, I go buy it. And then sometimes I read it. Maybe not. But I love that you walked into a business meeting and basically, no more Mr. Nice Guy, tearing up the papers, tripling the price. And then, man, this is going to pay for my divorce. And what a beautiful, full circle of that. And so good to be talking with you. Yeah, you and I got connected years ago when you came out to Seattle and did a workshop with me there. And the reason why so many men feel like they're reading their biography, their autobiography, when they read No More Mr. Nice Guy is that it is my autobiography. I often tell people that No More Mr. Nice Guy is my story, my biography. I just use other men's stories to tell my own. And how it came about is probably a little bit like your situation. About 2 or 3 years into my second marriage, my then wife said, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. Says I can't trust you. I can't believe anything you tell me. You're passive aggressive. You don't follow through. Everything. I think everything's fine, and then you blow up at me. She said, I'd rather be with a jerk. At least I know a jerk's going to treat me like a jerk all the time. You treat me nice, and then you don't. And she goes, you need help. If you don't go get help, I'm leaving you. And I thought, you're the one that's unhappy all the time. I'm the one trying to make everything good and trying to please you and trying to fix everything, and it doesn't work. And you're angry. You don't want to have sex anymore. And I thought, oh, well, I mean, she was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Every person that ever met us, they go, that's your wife? Mm-hmm. They go, she's gorgeous. Like, how the fuck did you get her? I don't know what they were assuming about my hidden qualities, but she was gorgeous, right? And she was amazing in many ways. And I thought, well, I don't want to lose her. And she said, you're a sex addict. You need to go to sex addicts, not 12 steps. So I did. I quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict, but that was my first ever men's group because it was all guys. And I could go and just tell anything about me. And the strongest reaction you got was, thanks for sharing, Robert. I mean, nobody had big reactions. And you just got to know about me. Nowadays, people often say, Robert, I appreciate how authentic you are, how transparent you are, how revealing you are. Nobody would have accused me of those things 30 years ago. Nobody would have said, Robert, you're authentic. They would have said, Robert, I don't really know you, because I didn't let people know me. So in that 12-step group, I started letting people know me, and it felt good. I started working with a therapist. Then I got into another men's group led by a psychologist who had written several books on sexual shame. I was in that men's group for 5 or 6 years when I began and pretty much finished writing No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm a marriage and family therapist by training. And so as I was starting to work on me, men were coming to see me, sometimes individually, sometimes with their wife or girlfriend. And they were saying, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I put them to a private school. I give her everything she wants. I buy her the car she wants. I get the leather interior. I take her on nice vacations. It's never enough. It's never good enough. She's always mad. She's always finding fault. And she never wants to have sex anymore. And I thought, I can finish these guys' sentences for them. I thought, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one with this world roadmap that if I just give up me, go along to get along, try to make everybody happy, don't rock the boat, then I'll be liked and loved and get my needs met. And I realized that doesn't work. It's not an efficient roadmap for life. So I started my first No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group 30 years ago, and we met every other Wednesday. And I just started writing just lessons, chapters. Now we might call them blog articles. I just started writing. What was I finding out about me? Where did I think nice guy syndrome came from? What was more effective ways of feeling, thinking, acting, being in the world? And I just kept writing and kept writing, started another group. The members of the group and their wives and girlfriends said, Robert, you should write a book. You should go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. Well, no pressure there. So I just kept writing. After about 6-7 years, finished the book. Took about 3 years to find a publisher for it because back then the publisher said, Robert, we like your book. It's well written, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book. Well,
Oops.
several, yearly 6-figure royalty checks later, a lot of publishers passed on a good book that continues to sell. Most books have their little peak and then go away. No More Mr. Nice Guy's been out there since about 2000, and it keeps growing every year because the number of nice guys keep growing every year.
Yeah.
So that's how I came to write a book. Pretty much all of my books, everything I teach, all my courses, all come out of my own struggles. What have I struggled with? What roadblocks am I running into? Where am I frustrated? Where am I stuck? Where am I unhappy? And I dive into that. I want to go find out. I want to go find answers. And often I either end up teaching it, writing about it, podcasting about it. And that's why I think so many men relate to it. It's my real true life story. I didn't just find nice guy syndrome in a college textbook and then write a book about it. It was found through my own struggles to figure out why wasn't I happy and why weren't the people around me happy by me being such a nice guy. So that's probably why you related to it and why so many other men do as well.
Yes, well, I think the way that you laid out the sort of psychological background to the nice guy seemed to be very pertinent. It really touched me when I read it, and I think it touches a lot of men. That kind of the conditioning, you could say, about the neediness in particular. I find that men, and from my own perspective, own experience, that need for the comfort of women's attention.
Well, a paradox with nice guys in that we often try to be needless and wantless. We often think we're bad for having needs and everybody else's needs are more important than ours. And we tend to use something that I refer to in the book as covert contracts. If I do this, then this will happen. And nice guys have 3 basic covert contracts. One is if I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved, and the women I want to have sex with will want to have sex with me. And this applies to gay men as well, to change their opposite sex. So if I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved. 2, if I do everything right, then I will have a smooth, problem-free life. Well, nobody does everything right, and life isn't smooth and problem-free. And third one is that if I read your mind and give to you what I think you want, then you'll read my mind and give to me what you think I want. Now, that's a recipe built for disaster. But because none of these covert contracts work, and because nice guys are inherently terrible receivers, every woman I've ever been with in my lifetime says, Robert, you're difficult to give to. And so I had to take that seriously. And now 35 years after beginning my own recovery journey from no more, I'm almost 70. I, believe it or not, am still working on being a good receiver. I'm still working on saying yes to just the world, to women, to my wife, to people who want to give to me. I'm still working with a coach on how to be a good receiver. Because this paradox for nice guys is, even though we're walking around kind of presenting we're needless and wantless, deep inside, we're like everybody else. We have needs. And because those needs are not getting met, because we're not taking accountability for our needs, because we're not nurturing ourselves, because we're not inviting people to nurture us, because we're not surrounding ourselves with people who want to help give to us, we do walk around feeling pretty empty and needy. And so our interactions with people, those covert contracts, it's like a big emotional hose we go out to hook up to people. And this is especially true for male nice guys, heterosexuals, and women, as you already mentioned. If I get this woman to approve of me, like me, want to have sex with me, then I'll feel okay. Then my needs will get met. But unfortunately, for most people, especially most women, if a guy approaches them with that big, empty, needy place and that big suction hose, the women are going like this. And then the nice guy thinks, oh, women don't like me. They can see through me. They don't want to have sex with me. No, that's really not the issue. The issue is they are so empty and needy, and women are actually just resisting them hooking up that hose. Because, those of us who have read Mark Manson's Model book, it's his first book before Subtle Art. And in there, it's called the subtitle is Attracting Women Through Honesty, I think is the subtitle. But his major theme in there is don't be needy. But unfortunately, because nice guys are not getting their needs met, not taking full responsibility, using ineffective covert contracts, not letting people give to them when they try, inherently nice guys are very needy, and that's very repulsive to the feminine.
Yes, yes. And you've reminded me of one of my covert contracts, which was if I do the washing up and put the kids to bed and give her a massage, she'll have sex with me. It never worked.
That should work.
It rarely works.
I still remember going back to my second marriage. I'd be doing the same thing. I would have made dinner, and I'm washing the dishes, cleaning up. And I'm thinking, oh, this will be good. This will be good. She'll want to have sex later. And she walks in and goes, how come you haven't wiped off the counters? And I go, I'm not even done yet. And I'm thinking, well, not only did that not get me laid, it seemed to just, and I thought it was because, well, she just doesn't like to have sex, which did seem to be part of the problem. But part of the problem was I had a covert contract, and I was trying to please her, and I was coming across as a little boy. And so when I'm going, look at what I did, Mommy, look what I did. I did good, right? You're going to get naked with me now and let me suck your boobies, right? No, she's going like that. I don't want a little boy, and that was my often experience. And it sounds like maybe you've experienced that. And again, so many men I work with, so many nice guys struggle around that issue of sexuality, mainly because we're trying to get a big empty bucket filled by convincing a woman to come desire us and have sex with us. And most women don't want to sign up for that.
No, it's very draining on their emotional energy, and it's just unattractive to, as you say, to be kind of looking after a little boy. And I've noticed that I noticed very quickly that the dynamic in the bedroom, let's say, with women is completely different when there is no neediness. When that neediness of the nice guys dropped away, suddenly it's a very powerful sexual kind of energy, the potential for that.
Yeah. When I got divorced from my second wife, I was in my late 40s. I'd done a lot of my nice guy work, and I got out into the dating world basically in my late 40s. I had not dated since college. I wasn't good at it then. I used nice guy seduction, which is, well, my standard, say in college, I would sit next to a woman who wasn't too attractive, but not too unattractive, right? I'd sit next to her. I'd raise my hand, answer the questions of the professor to show how smart I was. I then might later ask her a question, or maybe offer to do something for her, or do something to impress her. And then maybe if I saw her on campus later on, I'd walk up behind her, tap her on the shoulder and say, I don't guess you'd want to go out with me Friday night, would you? And she'd look at me kind of like startled, huh? And she goes, "Oh, I think I'm going to be washing my hair Friday night." And I tell you what, in the college I went to, I think every woman washed their hair on Friday night. I didn't have many dates because I was using that nice guy seduction. Like me, like me, like me, approve of me. And so when I got out in the single world in my late 40s, I'd done quite a bit of work on this. I'd done quite a bit of work on my self limiting beliefs that women weren't attracted to me, or women don't like sex, or women think men who want sex are bad. I'd kind of grown up hearing that message quite a bit. And I'd worked through a fair amount of that stuff. So I was out there in the dating world and really just getting a lot of my needs met. I had a good life. I had a good job. I was active socially. I had good guy friends in my life. And I was just attracting women right and left. I often said, I don't know what planet I've landed on. Because for the first 40 something years of my life, I thought women weren't attracted to me and thought sex was bad. Here were women coming on to me, propositioning me, getting naked on first dates without me even like doing a thing. They all of a sudden, she's taking her clothes off. What's happening here? I did not know what planet I'd landed on. And women, every woman. So here I'd spent 14 years in a marriage with a woman who announced on our honeymoon, "Aren't you glad now that we're married, we don't have to pretend to like sex anymore?" And I thought I wasn't pretending, but I guess she was. We did not have much sex during that 14 years. And when we did, it was not memorable. And so here I am out there, women wanting to have sex with me. And I'm going, I can't believe what's happening. And then women are every woman I had sex with for the next several years wanted it much more than I did. And they're saying, "Robert, I don't know what you're doing to me. I've always liked sex, but never like this." They're embarrassed because I don't know how blunt we can get, how wet they were, the multiple orgasms they were having. And they were embarrassed by that. And the main component of that was not that I'd become an amazing lover. I just quit being needy. And because I
Exactly.
wasn't needy, I was full. I could get my needs met, but I could also take them places they'd never been before and couldn't take themselves. And they wanted to keep coming back for that. So a big key in there was I had done a good job of getting my needs met. And in fact, as I started dating more, and once I got to where if I dated a woman a few times, it looked like we were going to keep seeing each other, I would tell her, if we keep seeing each other, here's what you can expect from me. I said, I'll be conscious. I'll be paying attention to me, to you, to us, and what's going on. I'll set the tone and lead. I'll show up with a plan. I'll never come by and say, "What do you want to do tonight?" I said, I'll be honest. Everything that I'll ever tell you will be the truth. You'll never find out I've told you anything less than the truth. I'll be transparent. You'll know what I think, what I feel, what I want, where I'm going, what I expect from you, what's bothering me. You'll know that. And these women would kind of look like, I've never had a man tell me that before. And then they'd look at me and they go, "What do you expect from me?" I said, I got pretty much everything covered in life. Just all I need from you is treat me well, make my world beautiful. And then their eyes would kind of roll up to the corner. How can I treat him well and make his world beautiful? I didn't need anything else. I
I want,
had a great cake of a life. All I was saying, if you want to come be the icing on my great cake, yeah, just be that sweet icing that treats me well and makes my world beautiful, because
yeah.
I wasn't needy. I had the rest of the bases covered.
Yeah. And I know that you and I have both explored the world of Tantra, Robert, which I would suggest adds a whole nother dimension to relations with women and sexual relations in particular. And that's something I like to encourage men to explore is to because once you start to really let go of the neediness in the bedroom as well as in the relationship itself, the bedroom experience, the sexual experience is utterly different.
Well,
Mind blowing,
I when
you know,
I first got it,
otherworldly, I would say, compared to the standard transactional sex that most people experience. And I think
well,
there's a powerful concoction to mix it up with the sort of recovering from the nice guy and exploring Tantra. For me, has been a very potent.
I can relate to that as well. And we could even throw like BDSM into the discussion because for a lot of nice guys, when they actually start consciously playing a very dominant role, or even consciously playing a submissive role rather than unconsciously playing that role. But yeah, when I got introduced to Tantra from some of your friends, one of whom I think's in the room there with you, my question was, "So what? You just don't come?" And they go, "Well, you can start with it." And so I remember I was dating my now wife. We've now been married 8.5 years as we talk. And we were dating at that time. And I tell people, I'm not sure the way my wife and I dated is probably the ideal way to meet a long-term partner. But I was walking down the street in Puerto Vallarta, where I live, and I was living there part-time here in Puerto Vallarta at that time. I heard a voice say, "Hola, señor, want a massage?" And I said, "No, no, hoy, tal vez mañana." I kept walking. I thought, I liked her voice. I didn't even know what she looked like. I liked her voice. Turned around, walked back, got a massage. Well, short story, we've been married 8.5 years now. Now, my wife, 22 years younger than me, highly sexual Latina woman, and she loves sex, put it that way. And early in our marriage, if she would be happy to have sex 3 times a day. And if we went a few days without sex, she just knew I had to be cheating on her, because why else wasn't I wanting to have sex? But when we were dating at the time, I got introduced to Tantra. And at that time, our dating was pretty much, our first year of dating was she just came to my house every Saturday night. We had sex. I gave her taxi money, babysitter money, sent her home. After about a year, she said, I like being with you. I thought, oh, I didn't see that coming. And I thought about it for about a week. I thought, I like being with her. So we actually started dating, met her kids, seeing each other more regularly. And so about that time that I met Big John and a few other people, we were probably having sex pretty much every day. And I was in my late 50s. And so, as you know, our sex drive naturally declined starting about 25. And so I still liked sex, but man, I just wasn't up for ejaculating every day of the week. My refractory period just, it was a little bit longer than that. So she had a lot more drive and interest than I did, but I still had sex with her. So I came home and I told her, I said, hey, these guys that are attending my workshop told me this thing about Tantra. And I said, for the next 5 days, I said, I'm not going to come. And she said, you can't do that. I said, I'm going to try. And she said, can I try to make you come? And I said, by all means. And so, through a little trial and error, we went 2 or 3 days without me ejaculating. And a few things we noticed. Number one, the sex went on longer because there was no kind of natural stopping point. For most people, when the guy ejaculates, sex is over. Right?
Yeah.
And so because I wasn't ejaculating, it went on longer. Now, I don't know if all women are this way, because I have nothing to measure it by, because my wife's the only woman I've had sex with since that time. But with my wife, if sex goes on longer, it gets dirtier, it gets nastier, it gets more like, I didn't see that coming. And you got to know my wife on that one. So it would just get, and so she was just loving that. And the other thing was, because I had no refractory period, I was more interested in sex more often. It wasn't like the next day wasn't, oh no, do I got to do it again? It was like, oh yeah, sure, I'm ready. So after about 3 or 4 days, she goes, I like this game. She started calling it the game. And then I'd actually talk to your buddies another time. And I said, you know what? Let's go 2 weeks. I'm going to shoot for 2 weeks without ejaculating. She goes, I don't think you can do that. I said, I'm going to try. She said, can I try to make you come? I said, by all means. Within a week, she was telling every woman she knew, tell your man, don't come. Don't come. And every gay friend that she knew, don't come. You'll like it. And so, that's how we continue to practice our sexuality, whether you call it semen retention, not coming, breathing more and going slower when you need to. It really just opened up our sexuality. And it's kind of like, I know nowadays kind of the trend is more and more people doing ethical non-monogamy, polyamory. My wife's side of the relationship's open. She can be sexual with men and women. I'm choosing to be monogamous to her because I love having sex with her. And the thing is, because of practicing the Tantra, it's almost like I get to have sex with a lot of different women, because I never know, what part of my wife's going to show up. And so it gives me all the variety that I need without the drama of having to negotiate sex with other women that I don't know, the condoms, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually almost created an almost like, I don't know, I never thought of giving it a name, but like an internal a closed open relationship. I don't know what we should call it, but it's because, with my wife, it's like I get a different woman every time I have sex, because of the way that we practice the tantric sex.
Yes. And without ejaculating, of course, which tends to create a dopamine spike that we have to recover from before there's enough energy to be able to.
We got to go through the whole cycle to get back to the starting point.
And often that drop off in dopamine feels so kind of miserable and depressing, and, can evoke anxiety and these sorts of feelings, that it's kind of very unsexy. But the energetic connection between the masculine and feminine people, when there's no ejaculation, no goal, it just becomes an energetic exchange kind of thing, an energetic adventure. It's so much more juicy than any kind of regular transactional type of sex that I'd ever experienced, for sure. And when men that I work with get to hear this and get to understand it, it's literally life-changing. The combination of dropping the nice guy and embracing a more open sexuality, a more tantric sexuality.
Well, even in that context, something that I had done, I never really till this conversation right now even thought in terms of it being a more of a tantric approach to sex. When I did get out in that dating world and that other planet that I landed on in my late 40s and early 50s, when I'd have sex with new partners, and my commitment was I'd say yes to every sexual opportunity that presented itself. And I did. And I had so much fun. I had sex with a lot of interesting people that if I was just judging them, are they hot enough? Are they young enough? Are they sexy enough? I might not have had sex with them, but because if the door was open, I walked through it. And oh man, I got to meet just a lot of really great people and have a lot of great sex. And due to a number of factors, just my own nice guy conditioning around sexuality, my religious upbringing. I have 2 degrees in religion. I was a minister for 8 years. I grew up being taught if I even lusted after a woman's breast, I'd go to hell for all eternity. You know, 14 years of a sexless marriage with a wife that shamed me for wanting to have sex. And then to get through the last part of that marriage, I went on antidepressants, SSRIs. It just killed my sex drive. And I remember going into my doctor and saying, I feel nothing down there. There's no blood flow. There's nothing. And the doctor said, well, let's change your medication. I go, actually, let's not. My wife and I get along better because she never wants to have sex. And so now that I don't either, we get along better. So I got out of the marriage, quit taking the SSRIs, and probably took me a good 2 years to recover from the SSRIs. And I actually started working, had my practice in an office with a bunch of psychiatrists. So the drug reps would come in and bring lunch once or twice a week. And I'd chat with the drug reps. The doctors were all bored with the drug reps because they know all that shit. I'm the only non-medical guy there. So I'm asking the drug reps all kinds of questions. So I was telling them about that effect of the SSRIs. And most of them said they'd never heard of it lasting that long. My guess is it probably isn't that unusual. I think SSRIs take a big toll on men, and especially a little bit older men. So I'm not a big fan of them for that reason. But anyway, so I get out there and here's women, of all sizes, shapes, ages wanting to have sex with me. And I'm not always getting erections. And so I struggled with that. Do I use the ED drugs? How do I do this? So I was talking to the shrinks in the office I worked. Try this, try that. And you know what finally changed it? Is that when I started having what I call the pre-sex talk with women, when clothes looked like clothes were about to come off, I'd say, okay, looks like clothes are about to come off. Let's have a talk. And we'd talk about protection, STIs, unwanted pregnancy. That's all of a 3-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And every woman I ever did that with so appreciated it because they're thinking about those things.
Yeah.
And, so they trusted me more because we talked about it. And what I started adding to that pre-sex talk was, sometimes when I have sex with a new partner, I don't always get or keep an erection. And I say, how about we just get naked, roll around with each other, go exploring, enjoy each other's bodies, and just let it go where it goes. Now, I didn't know to call that Tantra back then and didn't really even think about it till just this conversation. But by having that conversation, just taking all the transaction, all the stress, all the goal off the table. And by the way, every woman I said that to, I thought they're going to be offended when I said, when I have sex with a new partner, the nice guy in me thought, oh, they're going to think I'm a bad man because I have sex with other partners. None of them ever did. That was just it was a good way to clear out my self-limiting beliefs. But every woman I said that to got a look of relief on their face. Oh, I don't have to perform. I don't have to, fake an orgasm if I'm not having one. And so what happened, of course, is when we just got naked, took the agenda away, the transaction, and just went exploring. Here's a couple new bodies. Her body's new to me. My body's new to hers. I'd always get the erection, keep the erection. And then if I started getting anxious and started going away, I go, oh, I'm just going to go back to exploring again. And the other thing that I noticed when I told women that sometimes with a new partner, I didn't get or keep an erection, almost without fail, every woman, I now in hindsight is going, those bitches couldn't get him up and keep him hard. I'll be the one that gets him up and keeps him hard. And I came to realize not only was no woman offended by that little thing, they're going, I'll be the one that gets him hard. So they worked really hard to make sure, maybe that was a little bit transactional on their part, but I just began to notice, this is not a bad thing to let them know. I don't get erections. They're going, I bet I can remedy that. That was maybe my first really unconscious movement into more of a tantric way of being sexually. Took the goal out of it and just put the fun back in.
Yeah, yeah, and of course we're saying tantra. Tantra is another thing altogether. An ancient Eastern spiritual philosophy. But in the context in the West, it's the context of it is very much associated with a kind of sexual way of being, let's say, or a sexual practice.
Well, and I know most of us have kind of heard the thing about Sting, the former bass player for the Police. We're talking about him and his wife having 8 hours of sex, tantric sex. And I heard him one time, somebody asked him about it, and he goes, oh, no, you misunderstood. It's 7.5 hours of begging and 30 minutes of sex. That's the 8 hours of sex that my wife and I have.
Very good, very good. So it sounds like you've had an amazing amount of fun in your sex life, in your relationships with women, as a lover, let's say, as being the lover in your life. And I wondered what you thought of the way that men, and particularly men that relate with the nice guy, how they show up in the other areas of their lives, or what the difficulties and struggles are around, being a provider in life or being a leader in life. We've talked about the lover aspect of our lives, but what do you notice about the way the nice guy shows up in other areas? Does that make sense as a question?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And because that covert contract that we talked about, that, if I'm just a good guy, if I take care of everybody else's needs, if I do everything right, that shows up in most areas of life. Now, I do occasionally meet some nice guys that they're not nice guys at work, but they are with their partner, or they're not nice guys with their partner, but at work, they let everybody walk on them. So it doesn't necessarily be 100% across the board, and everybody's different. And that's one thing I found out when I started working with nice guys and writing about them. I assumed they would all be just like me, that they had an angry, unsafe father, a codependent, needy mother, blah, blah, and I came to find out, no, not everybody had the same story that I did. And so as we talk about nice guy syndrome, there is no one size fits all description of a nice guy. And because of those 3 covert contracts, nice guys often do, for lack of a better word, underperform in many areas of life. One of the most common things I hear nice guys say to me, Robert, I just don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't love my job, but I don't know what it is I'm supposed to do. A lot tell me, and this has been true for me for a good bit of my life, is that, I underperform at work. I know I could be making more. I could be accomplishing more. I see people who are no smarter than me, no better than me, getting the promotions, getting the raises, getting put in the VP, launching their own companies. And that was often a description of me as well. And when we're about to launch No More Mr. Nice Guy in print. Barnes & Noble was publishing it at that time. They got into publishing and then got out of it. But they had something they called Barnes & Noble University, where they get their authors to write classes based on books. And then they get people to come take the classes, I think for free, and then pitch books to them. And so they had me write a course. And so I wrote a course right before the book's about to be published. And I called it Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, They Rot in Middle Management. And in that course, 8 lessons, and I've since turned that into a video course. I still teach it, 25 years since I developed it. And I live it too. It's made a major difference in how my work and career looks today than it did back then. And because of just the nice guy pattern, and the one I see that shows up most for men at work is what I call the committee of mediocrity, that says, oh, don't stand out, don't risk. Go make sure everybody's happy. Go help that person finish up their thing. They'll like you and you'll feel good about you. And then they get behind on their own stuff. They never rock the boat. They never take a risk. They never speak up, because the committee of mediocrity said, well, don't do that. Don't do that. That might not go well. And successful people tend to be willing to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Successful people tend to be willing to get fired. Successful people tend to be willing to risk failure and risk success. It's another big piece for nice guys. Most of us are afraid of success because now it raises the bar, the expectations. It puts us in an unknown space. What are the demands going to be? Can I make it? That imposter syndrome, fear of being found out. So it can show up in work in a lot of different ways, often through being just kind of mediocre. I say that often nice guys are good at looking good, but not great at being great. So we do kind of rise up metaphorically middle management. We'll do well enough, but we don't hit it out of the park,
Okay.
rarely. And if we do, it kind of scares us and we kind of close back down again.
Yeah.
So it can show up in work and career. It can kind of show up often show up in our finances. Nice guys chronically tend to struggle around money. It's like we're bad for having money, or it means we're going to abandon our family if we have money because we're outperforming family or friends. We're impulsive with money. We tend to get women in our life that are needy and broken, and we go about trying to fix them. Divorces cost money, so nice guys often struggle around the money dynamic as well. So it can show up almost in any place in life that covert contract type dynamic is manifesting and showing up.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it takes a shedding of that, I would say. I wonder what you think of this. Doing the work, basically. And at some point, not caring what anybody else thinks of us.
Wow,
And that's quite
that's
an art. There's quite an art to that, wouldn't you say?
you got a magic wand for that one, Rowan?
Yeah.
I could use it. I actually been talking about that very subject just recently with some clients and in some workshops. And here I am, probably 30 years after I started writing No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I say in the book that nice guys tend to be slow learners, quick forgetters. And that's true for me. I remember when I went back to New York and read it for the audio version about 8 years ago. I'm reading it out loud, in a studio for 3 or 4 days. And I keep going, oh, I've forgotten that. Oh, I'm doing that again. Oh, I slipped back there. I need this book. And so I'm still working on it. And I remember I was having a discussion about 2, 3 months ago in a workshop here in my office, 8 guys. And we really got on the theme, and that kind of almost became the theme of that workshop, was consciously becoming willing to let people be hurt, upset with us, disappointed, angry at us, because that is so true for me. And that's a piece just in my energetic nervous system I'm still working on. I did about 3 weeks ago, I was in Austin, Texas, and I did a full day of an MDMA assisted therapy session with a really good coach. And basically just working on rewiring a lot of those childhood wounds and attachments to where I internalized the belief, if somebody's upset with me, if somebody's not happy with me, I'm going to die. I mean, that's wired into my nervous system. My wife, beautiful woman, I love this woman. She can get a look on her face and it's like, I feel like I got to fix that now. I'm going to die. And so I still got work to do because that's wired down into my nervous system. So if you think about this, I've been doing a series of lessons for my men's program, Integration Nation, on freedom. And after talking to a client just a couple of days ago about this whole thing about people being upset, being willing to hurt people. He's in an ethically non-monogamous situation where he and I started working together. He said he wanted to experience sexual variety. He had a girlfriend. And over the last 2 years, he had like 6 different regular partners he was seeing for each night of the week. He'd give himself one day off. Now he's kind of boiled that down to just 2 women that he sees quite a bit. He took them both away for a weekend a couple weekends ago. And he spent the entire weekend basically just managing their emotions. I mean, it was to celebrate a sale of a business that he'd just gone through, but he didn't take care of himself because he felt like he had to keep taking care of these 2 women who kept being triggered. The older sister trigger that, they had little sister, older sister trigger that they both had going on as they shared this one man for the weekend. And they talked about it. They both knew about each other. I mean, it wasn't like a surprise, but he spent the whole time taking care of them. So we went into that. What if he just played his side of the net? What if he allowed them to feel hurt, to be disappointed, even be angry at him, and allowed them to go all the way through, to own their own experience and find their way out the other side? And that's a piece that I've really started doing with my own wife, is that one reason I got back into doing my own men's work and got a coach again about 8 years ago is that she and I were struggling in our marriage. We'd only been married, less than a year. She, being the jealous Latina, would accuse me of things. You're doing this. You're sleeping with somebody. That woman is flirting with you. And I would get triggered and I'd blow up. And I'd first try to talk her down, through or over. When I couldn't talk her down, then she doubled down on her crazy thinking. I'd blow up. I'd say hurtful things. Sometimes I'd throw things. I just would react. Again, it's this thing that if somebody's upset at me, I'm going to die. I got to fix it. Right. And so about 2, 3 years ago, I realized I'm going to quit trying to save my marriage, because if I don't let my wife find her own way through her own distress, and I got to work on mine, that's my stuff, nothing's ever going to change. If our relationship is dependent on me always playing her side of the net, if you just think about that, I'm going to hit the ball from my side of the net. I don't care if we're talking tennis, pickleball, paddleball. I run the other side, ping pong even. Hit her, run back to my side, hit, run over her side. I mean, that's crazy. That's not a game. That's no fun. It doesn't work. So when I quit trying to solve the problem when I got started going to work on, it's okay if my wife's angry at me, hurt with me, thinking things about me that hurt me. She thinks I'm a bad man. As I've worked on that and let go, the funny thing is she now has 2 coaches she works with. She's in a women's group. She's working on herself, and she doesn't get triggered near as much. Now, if she does get triggered, instead of it just getting triggered and withdrawing, she'll come to me and say, I got something in my head. Can I talk to you about it just to get it out so it's not bothering me? I say, sure. And, then she'll tell me, well, I think this and I think this and I think that. And I'll say, well, come here, look me in the eyes. I'll touch her. I'll ground her. I'll get in the moment with her. I'll love on her a little bit. I'll tell her how much I love her, but I'll just be my masculine, create a polarity with her that bring her into the now, bring her in the moment. But I've had to get okay with the fact she sometimes thinks bad things about me. She sometimes thinks unreal things about me. Sometimes she, is mad at me. Sometimes she's hurt. And so I've really been working at applying that, and still working with a coach on just getting better at letting that go through my nervous system, let it out, that I don't have to fix anything. So that is really a core nice guy trait, that we got to please people, make them happy. They can't ever be upset, can't ever be disappointed, can't ever be angry. Yeah, they can. And guess what? They got to own their own stuff. They got to find their own way through it, as we're owning our own stuff, finding our own way through it. And the funny thing is, the paradoxical thing is, if we let people figure out how to resolve their own shit, they get better at resolving their own shit, and we don't have to deal with it near as much.
Yeah, exactly. I like that, Robert. Play your own side of the net, guys. Play your own side of the net. Very good. And work on those triggers, like really noticing the anxiety that rises up when your partner or somebody says something that you take to mean something about you that's bad.
Or they just get that look on their face, or they're withdrawn, or they don't text you right back, or they don't call you right back, or they accuse you of something you haven't done. Or you don't get the message back, or you don't get the promotion, or you don't get this, just notice that anxiety, because it's in our bodies, it's in our nervous system. And we can get all the awareness up here and change all the thinking, but if stuff still gets triggered in our body, our nervous system, and we just react to that, we're still going to keep following these old neural pathways that we developed as infants and small children to try to make our world feel safe.
Yeah, good. Robert, when we spoke a couple of days ago, we talked a little bit about what's happening in the world out there at the moment, the sort of technological advancements that are making, the AI revolution, if you like. And it seems that there's an awful lot of change coming down the line, if not already here. And I was reading today some more statistics about the likely numbers of jobs that are going to be lost in the US as well as Europe and everywhere else. And particularly that kind of the lower white collar jobs. So those kind of middle management jobs, I guess, that you were alluding to. And this gives me kind of concern for people at that level and nice guys in general, that it feels like it's going to be a more competitive environment in the future, and it's coming very fast. And it's now time, it's more important than ever to be able to overcome these nice guy sort of limitations, let's say, in order to be able to speak up and ask for what you need and want and go grab what's available. It seems that now's the nice guy's going to have to step up and be more competitive perhaps than they've ever been before.
Yeah, maybe let's look at it maybe a slightly different angle of that. One, I think this, even prior to AI, this has already been happening. I think if you listen to any podcasts on YouTube nowadays with anybody that's working with men, is you've heard the statistics of how isolated men are, how fewer and fewer men report being in relationship. Fewer and fewer men, especially young men, report having sex. The rate of depression going up for men, the rate of suicide going up for men, health issues going up for men, just life satisfaction going down dramatically for men due to a lot of changes that have been going on for quite some time. That maybe some of those changes have led to the nationalism you've seen in your country, we've seen in my home country, the U.S., of people kind of, you know, revolting against, you know, what we perceive as this has been done to us by these other factors. I mean, the reality, life has changed dramatically, say over the last 20 years even. And, you know, just let's just say with the ubiquitousness of the internet, social media, now with AI, and what I see happening so much for men, and where we see it is in their pain points. Their pain point might be relationship. Well, maybe they've never had a girlfriend. Maybe they've never had sex. Maybe they've had sex twice in their life and they're 35 years old. Maybe they can't find a woman they desire or keep a woman they desire. Maybe the relationship they're in has not been good for some time. Maybe their partner's angry all the time, never wants to have sex anymore. So the pain point might be a relationship. It might be real existential angst about their career. Maybe they've lost a job or two or three. COVID came along and just changed the whole script for the whole world. So many things, there's now so many pain points out there. And whether it is showing up in health issues, depression issues, unemployment, underperforming, suicide, a lot of pain points. But my gut read is that beneath the pain points, yeah, there's nice guy syndrome in there, but this happens to the jerks as well. It's not just the nice guys. I really think that the true core cause that has to be addressed for anything to get better. Yeah, well, we might could deal with our nice guy syndrome. We might get good at chat GBT. We might get good at building click funnels and marketing ourselves. But I think underneath all of that is an issue of connection.
Yeah.
That we humans are tribal in nature, and we men especially. We've always survived and thrived as a member of a group. And we look at human existence for 1.5 million years. We were hunters, gatherers, warriors. You had a tribe within a tribe. You had the tribe within the tribe of the women, the older people, the children. They move slower. They're more vulnerable. And then you had the able-bodied people, usually the initiated men that went out as a group and hunted and gathered and fought and just, you know, brought back the food, the furs and the fucks for the rest of the tribe.
Yeah.
They did that as a group. Now, they didn't have to talk a lot. They communicated more subtly. They worked as a team to get things done. The lone wolf did not survive, pass on their genes. So it's genetically, it's evolutionary in our system to go do our best work with men. I think that's why today, culturally, look what we love watching. We love watching professional sports. Why? It's typically men doing things well together as men. Do we tend to get really excited about the individual sports? People shooting a bow and an arrow, somebody throwing a frisbee, somebody,
Yeah.
you know. No, we get excited about the team sports. You know,
Snooker, though, I'd say might be a caveat to that. Snooker's a good game.
I'll take your
But
word on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And same thing with
I
rock
take your point.
bands.
I take your
Think
point.
about
Yeah.
what women love the rock bands. You know, I saw the Rolling Stones this last summer. Mick Jagger and uh, Keith Richards, both are like 82, right?
Amazing.
And they're still sexy. They're still making good music.
And he's so feminine, Mick Jagger. His body, the way he moves his body is so feminine. He can evoke the feminine in
Well,
this
yeah, I remember.
body. Amazing.
We'll go off of Mick for just a minute here, then we'll come back to connection. I remember watching, I think it was Martin Scorsese did a film about the Rolling Stones, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. And I never understood the appeal of Mick Jagger, why women thought, I mean, he's not handsome. But when I watched him in that movie and just watched the way he moved, the way he sang, he is just a beautiful combination of masculine and feminine. It is a raw masculine dominance and sexuality, and a feminine that he can wear a scarf, a beaded jacket. He can move, he can drop his clothes, he can dance, and then he'll come back, you know, street fighting man, you know. And so he probably as much as anybody personifies powerful masculine and feminine. Okay, so here's the deal. We're wired to be part of a tribe. For the last 10,000 years since we've been not so tribal in Western culture, but we've still had extended family. Boys grew up around their dad, their grandfather, their uncles, their cousins, and the men went out and did men things, whatever that might be, to help the family survive. Nowadays, that's all been broken apart. Men don't have that depth of connection. Used to be my father and your father, when they went to work, they probably mainly worked around men. Now, I'm not saying women shouldn't be in the workplace. I'm not saying anything like that. But all I'm saying is how men used to connect with men, whether it was in the tribe, whether it's in an agrarian society, whether it's more in the manufacturing type society, when men still worked around men, men went to war with each other. All of that's been just neutered, basically. And again, I'm not saying that's good, bad, right, or wrong, but all I'm saying is men have lost their connection to tribe. And I think that's why we're lonely. It's why we're struggling. It's why we're underperforming. And so even before I began thinking about the kind of things we're talking about right now, I realized when I joined my first tribe, that 12-step group for sex addicts, I felt like I was home. I felt like I had a connection. And when I joined that other tribe led by a therapist around sexual shame, I started connecting with men. And as I connected with men, I began to get my masculine initiation, because in every tribe in the past, the boys, the masterful men came and took the boys out of the nursery, took them away from the women, took them out, had them do something life threatening, something scary, and they carried them through it. And then they celebrated them afterwards. And now they became part of the male tribe, to where now the feminine came to them. They didn't have to chase girls. They didn't have to try to get women to have sex with them. They had what the women want. They were the protector provider. And now, because we don't have that masculine initiation, that masculine bond, that male bonded connection, guys just kind of hang out in the nursery. You can stay alone for hours, for days at a time, and get everything pushed to you, get your information pushed to you, your social media pushed to you, your porn pushed to you, your food pushed to you. Men don't have to do anything nowadays to live. And what I think has happened, to bring it all back, is that we're missing the connection. So when I went on the book tour for No More Mr. Nice Guy back in 2003, I did a lot of interviews, TV, newspaper, radio, and I got asked the question a lot: did I see a worldwide men's movement coming? I said, no, I really don't, because I don't see one thing that will unify men like feminism had. And I was right and I was wrong. I was right that I don't think there is that one thing, but I think underneath the surface there is, because I actually do see a worldwide men's movement happening right now. Now, it's not what you might think. What I've come to realize is I talk to men a lot. And you ask how men found me. Well, they find me a lot of different ways. They find my book, what I do. Some hear me on YouTube. But I tell you what, a lot of times is a guy went to a 12-step group for his alcoholism or his gambling or his sex addiction, and somebody recommended my book there. Or somebody went to Brazilian jiu-jitsu and started grappling with men and started hanging out with the guys they met there. And then somebody says, hey, have you seen this podcast? Or have you read this book? Or they went to their divorce support group at their church for men going through divorce, and the book was required reading for men, going through divorce. Or maybe they went to a dating boot camp, a pickup boot camp. The idea was, we're going to go learn how to talk to women and get laid. But the truth is, they learned how to hang out with men and go out with men, cruising with men to talk to women. And what I found is, in so many dating and pickup boot camps, No More Mr. Nice Guys required reading. And so whether it's my book, the other great books that are out there, when I began my recovery 30 years ago, about the only books I found was Iron John by Robert Bly. Now, there was other stuff out there. There were other programs out there, but pre-internet, you had to hear about them word of mouth. So I do think there's a worldwide men's movement. And what men don't realize, when they go join the dojo in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when they go to that divorce group, when they go to that 12-step group, when they go to that dating boot camp, what they're really doing is seeking out the company of men. We know somewhere inside us, we need men. We need guys' night out, whether it's a poker night, whether it's a road trip, whether it's going to a ball game, whether it's talking about our divorce, whether it is learning to grapple. We need men in our life as a tribe. And nowadays, what I'm seeing is that as one man connects with another man, they say, hey, check out this podcast, or read this book, or I'm in this men's program, or I've been doing this. And now all of a sudden, with the internet, the plethora of men's coaches, men's programs, men's books out there, all of a sudden men are uniting and finding tribe, but they're finding it in so many different ways. And without exception, when men have tribe, have men to support them, be there with them, hold them accountable, sharpen them, iron sharpens iron. When men have other men close to them, they perform at their highest levels. They become rock stars. They become pros at what they do. They get good in their relationship. They get good at work. They get good with their money. They get good at with their health. I tell guys, don't try to do this alone. We need a tribe. And so I've spent the last several years of my life, and I launched a men's program 2 years ago. And at that time, I was kind of thinking about semi-retirement. And I realized, no, I'm not done. And I committed then for 20 more years of me preaching and bringing tribe to men, community to men. So to answer the question, if there's going to be a change that helps men survive all the rapid change, and we don't even know what's coming with AI, right? We don't even know. Maybe it'll make it where none of us have to work and we can still just live great lives without having to. But we're still going to need tribe and challenge. I couldn't retire. I fucking need a challenge. I couldn't just go sit in my RV all the time. So we need that connection, that challenge, that camaraderie, that mentoring, that coaching, that believing in us, that mutual support, that just bullshitting each other and busting each other's balls and having fun and telling the same damn joke over and over again. We men need that to be at our best. The women of the world find that amazingly attractive. They may be dismissive of it. Guys' night out, what's that? Just guys being stupid, drinking beer, checking out women. No, it's men bonding with men. And you know what? We do share our feelings. We do get vulnerable. We do go deep. And that's why we keep going back, because that feels good and we need it.
Yeah.
And that's not the stuff we need to be doing with women. It's the stuff we need to be doing with men, which makes us highly attractive to them.
Yeah, beautifully put, Robert. Beautifully put. And I have to say that's one of the other things I've got from you and from reading the book is actually a connection with men. You know, great friendships with my best friends, you know, in a way that I couldn't relate to men back in the old days. Much more comfortable in the company of women. And now that's just
Me too.
completely changed. Well, it's great to be here and to share this men's company with you, Robert, and to have this conversation. One final thing is we're actually launching our 30-day detox for men. So it's a 30-day kind of boot camp. It's online, you know, but we have a check-in every day. We'll be helping men bring integrity into their lives, to strip away some of the addictive behaviors and patterns and so on. So it's great to have you launch this for us or help us launch this, and for your support over the years, all the work that we've been doing here in the UK and Europe. Thank you so much for your inspiration and support. It's always been felt from time to time when we've bumped into each other on speaking engagements and things, and it's always a wonderful time to see you, Robert.
I'm cheering for you. And this boot camp is going to be great. And, you know, sometimes I'll hear from men, well, you know, I don't want virtual. I want in person. I go, I hear you. I've built a tribe of men around the world. When I joined a men's program about 8 years ago, I had maybe 1.5 good guy friends in my life. Now I've got 25 to 50 men. I'm not making that up. I could call 3 o'clock in the morning. They'd answer the phone and they'd get on an airplane and fly down here if I needed them to. But I went to work on that, and it began in virtual programs. And the guys I met in virtual programs, then I'd meet with them in person. I've got a group I've been in for 7 years now. We meet every other week virtually. We're going camping this summer. When I was in Austin, Texas, 3 weeks ago, 3 different nights I went out with a group of men. Monday night, I went out with a group of entrepreneurs, of an entrepreneurs men's group I'm in. Wednesday night, I went to a friend's house that I met a year ago, that every time I'm in town, he invites everybody he knows in his men's programs to come meet me and makes us a great dinner. So it doesn't great men Wednesday night. Friday night, men I gotten to know both in my men's program and that I've just met in Austin. Went to a buddy's house. We had 15 guys. We barbecued, played guitar, music, you know, went deep, got stupid, whatever. And so 3 nights in Austin, in a city I don't even live in. And, you know, last time I came to London, you know, going out and doing with groups of nights there. When I saw you in Berlin a couple of years ago, got to connect with you there at Mindsign. I love that. I was the keynote speaker last day. And when I got done talking, I mean, I still get tears in my eyes. I got a 4-minute standing ovation. I'd never experienced that. Like
300, 400
men
guys in the room.
up there. But here was the funny part about all of that. I told the sound guy before I got up there, I said, I want you to play Avicii's Wake Me Up. I want you to pump it up, and we're going to dance before my presentation. So we did. You know, guys were up jumping around, like the 300-400 men. They're up on the stage with me, you know, and just something about that Wake Me Up by Avicii just tells the story about men. And here's a man that took his own life after having quite a bit of success. And I tell you what, so every man in that hall was up dancing around, having a great time, jumping up and down, no reservation. After the program, somebody came up to me and said, "Robert, German men don't dance." And I go, "Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do."
They do.
You put
I
men
saw
in
it.
a tribe, it could be good men dancing badly. It doesn't matter. We don't give a fuck. But when we're with tribe, it opens us, it connects us, it brings out the best in us. So I can't wait to get back over to Europe again. In fact, I am. I'm going to be in Denmark later this year,
Oh,
and
okay. Well, we'll have to invite
continue
you.
to bring the message there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, we brought you over to the UK for the Breaking Free boot camp we did. That was eight
That was
years
so
ago.
much fun.
It was so much
8 years
fun.
ago? Was it
That much,
that long ago?
yeah, yeah. But and we've been running a few ever since, but we've had a bit of a hiatus, and we're bringing them back later in the year. So maybe we'll invite you back next year, Robert. Would love to host you over here. Yeah,
I won't turn down an invitation to come back to the UK.
that's great. We'll look forward to that. Well, Robert, that's it. Thank you so much for your time and for your insight and your wisdom and your stories and the work that you've put into this and the gift that that's given us is so much appreciated. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. This was fun. Thank you. I had a good time.